for August the 30th. Roll call, please.
Council members Friedman.
Here.
Garpetian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Sinanian.
Here.
Mayor Devine.
Here. And next.
The agenda for the August 30th, 2016 special public meeting of the City Council was posted on Friday, August 26, 2016 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. And next.
1 minutes of special City Council meeting of August 23rd, 2016.
Okay, we have approval.
Move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Minutes are approved as submitted. Next item, please.
To Director of Community Development regarding City Council direction to accept a late submittal in the response to the request for proposal RFP to preserve and develop city-owned property located at the former Rockhaven Sanitarium, 2713 Honolulu Avenue, APN 5610-024-900 through 910. 2A would be motion amending the RFP process and directing staff to accept late submittal. 2B would be motion rejecting late submittal.
Thank you. Mr. Ochoa?
Yes, ma'am. You're all very familiar with the RFP process on Rockhaven. At this point, we are in receipt of 6 proposals. One of those proposals arrived 10 minutes late. If the council is inclined to accept that proposal, then we need to amend rules as specified in the motion on your staff report. If the council is inclined to not accept that 10-minute late proposal, I believe at that point you don't have to do anything.
There's a motion to reject it if that's the council direction.
And just to be clear, none of us know what that proposal is, correct?
That's correct.
And there is no legal grounds that somehow precludes us from accepting this application other than our own rule for a deadline.
Correct. And then also just as part of the process would be to amend the process to go ahead and accept that. And by doing so, you'd remove any legal impediment.
I'll go first. I'll just make it short.
Fine.
The more proposals, the better. I don't know who this applicant is. I don't know what their proposal is. From what I can tell, no one else is being prejudiced by it. We need this Rockhaven issue has been sort of this cloud that's been always there, and we're trying to deal with it. And so the more proposals we have, the more opportunities there are for us to consider. So I'm for accepting it.
A question. Who's best familiar with this, with the issue around that? There was a discussion, and I'm in favor of extending it, but I want to make sure that we state some reasons for it and not just say that we want more people to apply, the better. The report says there were some extenuating circumstances. What were those extenuating circumstances?
The development team in question had indicated that their submittal was impacted by a bomb threat that took place at their place of work, and that was verified by public safety departments. Interestingly enough, it was a real bomb threat, but it was intended for a building of that company housed in that particular building 2,000 miles away. But the way that it all came out is that it was a threat at that building. The building was indeed evacuated. According to the developer, that had an impact on their team's ability to get their work done.
Okay, and was it a branch of the city government that forced the evacuation, that ordered the evacuation? Did the police department say everybody out?
I believe,
I guess,
a little bit of both, right? When somebody pulls the handle, everyone is trained to go out. Our police department and fire department did respond. It was a genuine call out.
Okay, so I'm going to say if that delay was 10 minutes or more, then that is excused when when this branch of the city or a life safety issue affects their timeline, even though there were 2 and 3 extensions to this previously. I mean, we were students. You wait till the last minute to do your report and to turn it in, and even though you had months to do it, maybe.
I do need to be clear. That situation in particular happened the day prior of the deadline. The developer team is indicating that did have an impact on them. There were other circumstances, but just need to be very clear because it's all a matter of public record that happened on the day.
But it was
prior.
before the deadline.
It was before the
obviously
deadline.
before the deadline.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in my mind, aside from the general purpose of having more applicants, the better, I think this is an extenuating circumstance that's not going to create a huge precedent for other applicants in the myriad of other RFPs that we do. That it's an emergency, our public safety departments were responding, and the length of time that they were prevented from returning to work is presumably longer than the length of time of their denial or their tardiness, their lateness in the thing. So for me, that's good enough. So if that was a motion that Mr. Sinanian made, I would second.
I'll make the motion, sure.
One comment. I think I have a question for our cities. Does our RFP clearly spell out as to what the deadline is, or there's a gray area?
Councilmember Garpetian, the deadline was clearly stated in the RFP. It did not indicate one way or the other whether or not late proposals would be accepted or rejected.
For the future RFPs, I think that has to be in the RFP. You have to just indicate if you're late, you're late. Because bomb threat the day before, don't wait until the last minute to submit your RFPs. Bomb threat the day before. 10 minutes is not much, but I'm for the courtesy of accepting the application. But I think for the future applications, it's not fair to the other ones that they were on time and submitted everything 2 days before. So this one I will vote for. But from here on, if we have a deadline, we have a deadline. We just have to meet the deadline. Wait until the last minute application.
Well, and if I may, I think the deadline is stated in the RFP. It is 5 p.m.
That's what I said.
I feel that my particular, I contacted the city attorney, and Ms. Friedman said that nobody knows who the proposal was submitted by, but according to the city attorney, that if we okay this, eventually it will be known.
So what do you guys do?
Residents can ask and it will be known. We can ask and it will be known. And I think that gives an advantage, and I think it's unfair to those proposals, the bidders that were on time in submitting their applications. So I think that kind of tips the scale for me as far as the disadvantages outweigh the advantages of this extension. We extended the date. We did not extend the time. The time was 5 p.m. And now that I hear that the bomb threat or whatever the reason, I don't want to say excuse, the reason was a day before, I just really don't think that's adequate for me. So I'm going to vote against accepting this late submittal. I think it's unfair to those that got them in on time, that went according to the RFP, and I think that it would give a perception of the integrity of our RFP process. And I just hate to see our process changed at the last minute on all of these, the submittals that came in on time. So I'm against the extension, accepting the late submittal. Anyone else? Friedman, did you want to weigh in? Anybody want to?
No, I don't have a strong feeling either way. I can see arguments for and against it, but I think that the fact that none of us know at this point who the submittal is from shows that even if we find out later, I don't see how that would somehow prejudice us in any decision that we make. If anything, I think it would probably prejudice some of us against going with that company. But I do think that the bomb threat is a pretty good excuse. I assume there's no evidence that it was called in by any of the other applicants that are applying. But I'll vote for it.
Okay. So do we have a motion?
We have a motion and a second.
And a second? Did you get a second?
I have not gotten a second yet. Najarian? Councilmember Najarian.
I guess we did it kind of backwards. I said if Mr. Sinanian has made a motion, I will second it. He hadn't. He did make it afterwards, so I will second it.
Excellent.
Okay, roll call, please.
Council members
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Devine?
No. Next item, please.
3, Director of Community Development regarding Central Park Block Project Professional Services Agreement for California Environmental Quality Act Review Services. 3A, Resolution authorizing the City Manager to negotiate and enter into a professional service agreement with Meridian Consultants to provide California Environmental Quality Act services for the Central Park Block Project in the amount not to exceed $121,350. 3B, resolution appropriating $200,000 from Economic Development Project Central Park Block Project account 43110-101-718-52095 to fund environmental and other associated due diligence studies in connection with Central Park Block Project.
Okay, I see Ms. Sanchez at the podium. Mr. Ochoa?
She's ready to go.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mayor Devine and council members. The item before you does represent a very important milestone related to the development of the Central Park Block Project and on further determining the feasibility of the Armenian American Museum and Cultural Center. Earlier this year, when the City Council authorized the exclusive negotiating agreement to explore the feasibility of having the museum at Central Park, staff at that time began working with the museum team on some preliminary layouts. Though the specific configuration and the size of the museum is still being studied, a preliminary design is conditioned upon a parking structure on top of the current Central Park Green, with the museum sitting on top of that parking structure. Because of its location, Central Park has long been considered an optimal site for new downtown parking. So in considering the feasibility of the museum at this site, there was also an opportunity to consider a shared parking garage that would meet the needs of the civic uses on this block, as well as uses throughout downtown. So what this does is the award of this contract allows us to start the due diligence for the site. Specifically, it brings on an environmental consultant that would prepare the initial study for us, and depending on what is identified in that initial study, it would help us determine what the appropriate level of environmental review would be required for this property. We do have a very aggressive schedule. Our goal is to have the environmental process finished and presented to this council in January of 2017. It's a very large project. Our partners at the museum team have received a very large $1 million grant from the state. So in working with them, starting the sequence process now allows us as a city to determine the critical elements that this future project could bring. So when you're looking at the master plan, and that would be a separate RFP that would be brought to this council for your consideration, you're looking at the park, the paseo, design of a garage that would have to support a superstructure, and you're also looking at the thoughtful relocation of replacing that green area throughout the block. So we had 3 proposers that competed for this RFP. All 3 were very highly qualified, and all 3 had the necessary technical skills to complete this job. However, there are 2 items that really set Meridian apart, and Meridian is the company that the staff is recommending. The 2 items that set them apart was the thoroughness of their scope and also in their pricing. So again, the complexity of this project doesn't allow us today to know exactly what CEQA document we're going with, whether it's a full-blown EIR, we do a mitigated neg deck. So what Meridian did was something different. They presented a range of options. So that does allow us to choose a scope of services that would be flexible, and we can really tailor it to what we need for this project. So providing this a la carte menu, if you will, it provides flexibility. The proposed amount, which is $121,350, is not to exceed. That anticipates a full-blown EIR with the traffic study, so that's the height of what it would cost for us. So even with the range of pricing, they were still more competitive compared to the other proposers. With that concludes my report. We do have a representative from Meridian here if you have any questions related to the proposal. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
Some questions.
Mr. Najarian?
Darlene, has Meridian done any work for the city before?
They have done work with the city. In looking at their proposal, they cited the Americana brand EIR, also an initial study for the Masonic Temple. I know they've also done some residential projects in Glendale.
Did they do the downtown specific plan? They did not?
No.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure they had experience. This may, you know how these things go, may or may not get challenged. So I want to make sure we have a company that's weathered the fight, and in the case of the Americana, they certainly did weather a battle. So I'm confident in that.
Any other questions? I just want to make sure that our residents realize that the reason that the city is paying for this EIR is because it is still our property.
Correct. The property, not only the parking structure will still be our property, we're anticipating a lease agreement for where the museum would sit, but again, also it gave us an opportunity to look at the block as a whole, which could be some civic campus of some sort with the adult recreation center and the library that we have there. There's an opportunity for connectivity throughout this block.
And the expansion of open space, both green and plaza space, that will exceed what is there today.
Right.
That is our goal.
Right.
I think that
Did you say exceed?
A lot of people don't realize that, but the way it's laid out,
it will be
there'll be more green space after than there was before.
Parking lots become parks and plazas because all the parking goes underground.
That's great.
And the park will wrap around the library, right in the park.
That'll be the ideal, but that will come back to this council, as Darlene indicated, when we do the RFP for the master plan. This council will have the opportunity to put those fine touches on what the park will ultimately be, those public realm spaces.
Great. Okay. Do I have a motion or any other questions, comments?
Seconded.
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Friedman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Devine.
Yes. And the next is
Adjournment.
Do I have a
Move to adjourn. Second.
We are adjourned. Now I will call to order the Glendale City Council meeting for August 30th. Roll call.